Hello guys, welcome to another video of game development with Python. We will be creating a new game which is also one of the most played games in the world, that is simple, the snake game. Well, the logic behind the game is pretty simple. The snake eats the apple and it grows longer. So what are the variables in the game? Well, there is an apple that spawns at random locations inside the game window, an ever-growing snake. So every time the snake eats the apple, it grows by a unit. We can also make the game more interesting by making the snake go faster every time it grows. This game will not need any sprites since we will be using already available basic set of shapes, but we will be working on the logic behind primarily. So let us start by creating the algorithm as so the first step in our algorithm is going to be enlisting the game elements that we have already done while discussing the game. This being a pretty simple game, features have three game elements: the snake, the apple, and finally the game window. You can also add music and other animations as you have already learned. Next, we collect all the game elements and store them in a folder. I would not be meeting them, but if you plan on adding music or sound effects for the background to your game, you can easily download and use them. Ensure that they are placed in a common folder so that there are no runtime issues. Finally, we start coding the game out. Importing the library being the first step, followed by creating the game windows and all other visible elements. Once the game visible elements are worked on, we create the controls for the same. Finally, coming to the main game loop, we define all the conditions and all checks, then coding in all the game functions one by one and code them. Ultimately, moving to the update state so that all the changes and functions are worked on and activated. There are two approaches for solving any problem. The first approach is bottom-up. The bottom-up approach is one where we start caring of smaller objects before tackling the bigger one. However, this game will be developed with top-down approach, that is, we would creating the main game loop first before we define the characteristics of smaller objects in the game. We just now discussed and created the algorithm and also discussed the various approaches for solving a problem. So now we'll resume the video and start coding the snake game. As always, we start by importing and initializing the libraries Pygame library in our case. Next, we initialize and define all the game window variables starting with FPS or frame per second. Here, we define FPS to be just 15 since there is not much updation in the game window. So, a slow frame rate would also work well for us. Next, we define the window width and height, which are nothing but the height and width definition of a game window. Finally, we define the cell size variable to create cells inside the game window that we will later use to place the apple and mark the movement of the snake. Then we use the assert function. This ensures that all the cells are contained in the game window, so we can insert both the cell width and height so that all the cells on the edges are contained both height and width wise. Finally, I have defined the cell width to be the division of window width and cell size so that we can automatically create complete cells, and hence all the cells are contained in the game window. Similarly, we also define the cell height value by checking it with the division of the window height with cell size again, just to ensure that we have all the cells to be completely printed. Next, we define the color variables and set the background color to black. Finally, we define the head variable to 0. The head variable is one that will help us to direct the snake. We will be controlling the head variable with the key movements, and rest of the body will follow the head by jumping onto the cells that were covered by the head cell, so we can create the effect of the snake moving as a whole. The head will also be responsible for eating the apple upon coming in contact with it, so the apple is randomly placed anywhere. Now that we have all the variables declared and ready, next we will be starting off with the main game loop and related functions. In next video, we will be starting off with the main game loop and related functions.